thank you for the opportunity to be here, and ABP appreciates the scientific approach that's being taken to evaluate the topical pain medications. In the next several minutes, and in the interest of time, I'm going to sort of cut back the slides that I have. Sarah covered several of the topics related to states and how they regulate compounding. And I believe members of the committee have the slides, which are good references on how the states regulate the practice of pharmacy. Is there a slide? Thank you. Thank you, sir. Just a quick overview of the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy, I'll refer to as NABP. Was founded in 1904. Primary function is to support the state boards of pharmacy in licensure of pharmacists, pharmacies, and we also are engaged in inspections of pharmacies on behalf of the boards and several different accreditation programs. I think Sarah mentioned that there are 50 individual state boards, and they all regulate the practice of the profession of pharmacy a little bit differently, and that practice is defined in every state Pharmacy Practice Act, which is located in the state laws or statutes of each state. The boards of pharmacy are the agencies that are responsible for the regulations or the rules that are developed for pharmacies and pharmacists to follow. Boards fall under many different agencies, everywhere from Department of Education, primarily Departments of Health and Occupational Licensing, and several of the state boards of pharmacy are independent agencies in their states. This is just a general outline of what the boards do. Their responsibilities are to license pharmacists, technicians, the pharmacy, the facility itself, and to protect the public regarding the drugs that are dispensed by the pharmacies. Interesting note is that the state boards of pharmacy also, many of them regulate wholesale distributors. Approximately 80% or 40 of the states do regulate the wholesalers. They also regulate manufacturers and the 503B facilities, the outsourcing facilities that Sarah referenced, which are numbering in the 70s now, producing products that are not patient-specific. And your focus today here is on a non-sterile patient-specific product as opposed to the others. Just a quick glance of what boards of pharmacy look like. The average number of pharmacists on boards is 6. I've seen them up to 14 pharmacists on boards. They typically have 2 public members. Average term is 4 years. Most board members serve 2 terms or 8 years. The staff of boards is typically made up of an executive director, an associate executive director with compliance officers or inspectors. Average number is 6. The highest number I'm aware of is in California, where they have approximately 50, which is proportional to their population. And there are as many as 5 or 6 states that only have 1 inspector, and those are typically the smaller states like Rhode Island. 10 states, I think it's 10, or close to 10 states have more than 10 inspectors, and these are typically your larger states. They usually have an attorney that works for the board. If you've been associated with boards of medicine, they operate very similarly. There are approximately 135 pharmacy degree programs that have to be accredited before the pharmacist can be licensed by the Accreditation Council for Pharmacy Education. Pharmacists are required to obtain 1,740 internship hours to qualify for licensure. And of course, they have to receive large amounts of continuing education. I mentioned that they are, the boards regulate the practice of the profession, and some of the common elements of all practice of profession definitions include interpreting orders, compounding, dispensing, and consulting the patient as well as practitioner. And I think it's important to note that the boards of pharmacy, many of them regulate the product itself, the drug, from the manufacturer to the patient, which is a very large business. Unlike many medical professions, the boards of pharmacy regulate the individual practitioner, the pharmacist, but they also regulate very large industries. And depending on the sources of information you look at, the prescription drug business is approaching $500 billion in this country. So it's a very, very large industry that's regulated by the boards. These are typically what the boards look at. I'll focus your attention on the standards that are developed by the boards, which look at the facility, the equipment, the environment, personnel. And a very important part of what the boards do is to regulate pharmacy compounding. Sarah mentioned the tragedy that happened in 2012 at the New England Compounding Center, where 70-something patients died from meningitis. That led to the 2013 law, Drug Quality and Security Act, which contained the revisions to the FD&C Act Sarah mentioned, regulating the outsourcing facilities, but also placing tighter regulations on patient-specific compounding in the 503A that she referenced. The states will adopt the USP standards for compounding. They have done traditionally in the past adopt parts of the standards. Many of them now are adopting these standards in their complete form, which NABP encourages. Training-wise, the states are getting much more experience in regulating compounding than they had previous to 2012 in the New England Compounding Center disaster. NABP provides education to the compliance inspectors for the states. We do that continuously. The USP itself does provide training to the states, many times complimentary. Private organizations that do a lot of education on compounding, such as a company called Critical Point, routinely provide training to the states at no charge to help improve the state's ability to regulate. NABP developed a program in 2013 to assist the states in inspection of pharmacies doing compounding. And to date, we have completed over 1,200 different pharmacy inspections according to a blueprint that these states developed, looking at certain elements of compounding. These inspections have occurred in all 50 states. We look at the USP standards, and we report these findings to the pharmacy and to the Board of Pharmacy, which serves as an educational opportunity for the pharmacy and the state. I'll jump over this. We typically, all the states look at the definition of a drug, which you are all familiar with, and I'll focus on the piece that it's an official, recognized by an official compendium, which the states recognize as the USP. The sections of the USP that the states focus on are USP 795 for non-sterile compounded medications, and USP 797 for sterile compounded medications. This December, A new Chapter 800 will be enacted by or become effective by the USP, which looks at hazardous drugs. And most of the states are in different stages of adopting that new standard. Regarding FDA-approved drugs, which Sarah touched on, the states recognize the importance and the role that the FDA plays in regulating and approving FDA drugs. The state enhances that process by making sure that the FDA-approved drugs stay within legal channels, excuse me, are not diverted, and comply with the second part of the Drug Quality and Security Act, Title II, which deals with the distribution of drugs. And currently, that law is halfway through being implemented. And in 2023, if the law is implemented on time, all prescription drugs that are approved by the FDA will have a 2D barcode on them. And the drug supply chain, each person that touches a drug will be able to scan that and ensure that the drug is authentic as a preventative to drug counterfeiting. The states also look very closely at storage and handling, temperature, humidity, things of that nature, which are very important. The topic of not being FDA-approved drugs, I think Sarah has covered very adequately. I think the important things that I'm going to talk about are coming up next, which are some of the findings that the states have, as well as the inspection program that NABP has developed. And here's just a quick summary of those findings. We're seeing multiple ingredients with no supporting literature to support safety and efficacy in the pharmacy itself. Many of them do have documentation to support the efficacy of the product and safety based on journal articles and different references that they provide. But that's not the majority that we see. There's typically no justification on the prescription by the prescriber for the compounded product. And we are seeing a very large use of pre-printed prescriptions by the pharmacies where they have the ingredients, the indication, quantity that can be selected by the physician with a check. And one of the gaps that we have recognized in the new law, compounded medications from bulk drugs or active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs, are required to come from an FDA-registered facility. And many of the pharmacies that we visit cannot tell us what the true source of that drug is beyond the repackager that sold them that medication. On the positive side, those drug repackagers are providing extensive certificates of analysis to the pharmacies. And I'm going to end with just a couple of slides here that show the different types of conditions that are on the pre-printed prescriptions and some of the large numbers that we see, different conditions for which these are prescribed. And I'm not going to attempt to pronounce all the drugs on these lists, but these are the various combinations, which you can see are up to 6 different combinations of different active ingredients, which is not uncommon. And we do have, I didn't see one that had 7, but 7 is the maximum number that we have run into. This is an example of the pre-printed prescriptions. They're intentionally blurred. You can't read who they are from, but they can be as complicated as this or as simple as a copied form with the name of a drug and the indication and a place for the prescriber to sign. And that's it. Thank you.